It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to the Financial Crisis Talk Center. This is the second segment of a two-segment show talking about the city of Detroit, the bankruptcy, the facts, the law, justice, and solutions. That's what we're working through.
Apple pie and the American way.
Brian Small.
Good morning, Ken. It's wonderful to be here.
We've already sent those good mornings. Alfred is back and Dave Einstein is back. It's good to have us all here.
You said this is the second show. I think this could be. We could have this same show for the next 14 to 18 months.
We probably will, but I would like to try and cover different subjects as we go through each show rather than talking about the same thing over and over again. Where we left off on the last segment is we were approaching the pension issue. And we've scratched on it, but I want to work through that because that's the most critical, high-strung issue facing the bankruptcy, and it's the biggest issue in municipal bankruptcies that have occurred to date. And most people say what happens in Detroit is going to lay a foundation as to what happens in the future with all these other municipalities that have financial problems. So they're going to be watching what happens here.
It's very interesting, though, as I was reading articles on this, it's not going to be all other municipalities that are hurt because there are a whole bunch of municipalities that are denied the opportunity to file Chapter 9 because states have opted out of Chapter 9, including Georgia, which I thought was interesting.
A lot of the reasons for that is they don't want to be the test case, and those municipalities may not have been large enough to be the test case. They don't want to fight that fight. We know, and I think the world knows, that this case, our case, notwithstanding the two pending cases, is the test case.
You know, we'll have to save that for a different segment and a different show, but it's an interesting question of if you don't have Chapter 9, how do you solve your financial problems if you can't reach and accommodate a negotiated settlement
you
and
just
resolution?
Close. No,
Shut the doors. The EFM couldn't get where he wanted to go. We had a law to designed to try and accomplish that, and here we are in a bankruptcy.
But real quickly, though, what it's going to do is it's going to provide guidance and answers for all of those municipalities, including the ones that don't want to proceed to Chapter 9, because now a lot of the unknown. Is the pension going to be deemed constitutional? Are they going to be able to do this? If they went to Chapter 9, what would happen? Those questions are going to be answered in the next year. So it's going to help with the negotiations and the strategy, whether or not you actually need to file.
All right. I want to step back for a second, and we talked about this on another show, but I know people are not aware of the framework of the issue, and you have to put it in perspective. If you work for a private employer versus if you work for a municipality. If you have a private pension, suppose you were a GM employee or a Chrysler employee, and those companies, we all know, filed bankruptcy. If you have a pension from a private company, you are protected. You have what's called the PBGC, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which is a federally funded, backed insurance fund that covers losses to private pensioners. So that if your company goes bust, you do not lose your pension benefits. You're protected by the PBGC, and it's almost 100% protection. It's not carte blanche protection, but it's very solid protection.
It's protected by everybody who's working and at least paying some taxes in the United States or the world to the United States. And what it is you're paying a little portion of your own protection, but you're getting the global effect. It's a huge insurance operation.
So you work for a municipality. You work for the city of Huntington Woods. You work for the city of Detroit. You work for
You couldn't have picked
Any
two,
place
you could not
USA.
have picked two
Any
polar
place
opposites.
USA.
why not?
City
You
of
work-
Huntington Woods
You work for
and
the city of
Detroit.
Bloomfield Hills. You work for Oakland County, which is always seems to be up there in fiscal responsibility. And you have a pension. And suppose you started working there 30 years ago. And let's assume you're 60 now. You've put in your 30 years. 30 years ago, 1983, you think when you started working there, you thought to yourself, wow, I'm not going to have this pension. That's okay. I don't really like the salary. It's not that great. I could probably make more money working for a private company, but I've got this pension. That's going to be a good thing. I'll work my hours. I'll do my job. I'll pay my dues, and then I know I'll have a retirement fund. Nobody said to you 30 years ago, hey, buddy, you better take a look at that because, those things are not, there's no PBGC guarantees for you. Nobody, who ever heard of the PBGC until probably the earliest that most people would have heard of it would have been in the Chrysler.
You thought it was peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, well, don't forget.
Yeah.
that
I like peanut butter and jelly.
the
I do
whole
too,
concept
actually.
behind a pension and the reason why the PBGC doesn't apply to municipalities and public service and public
Why is
cities
that, Brian?
is because municipalities were always supposed to be safe and secure,
Right.
and they didn't need
Self-sufficient.
to.
Hey, I'm working for the government. What do I have
Right,
to worry
right.
about?
Right, exactly. There was no need to insure a city because cities had a tax base and they were always going to be able to protect themselves. In this case, it turns out not so much when 1.3 million people exit.
Well, what's
Yeah,
the
you
difference?
lose a heck of a lot of your tax base, and now you're left with 700,000 people, of which I think 37% or something are living under
Below
the
the-
poverty
yes.
poverty
Wait-
line.
wait a minute.
We worked
Let's
through that.
take your example.
And the city's not, and the city income tax is the highest is the highest rate in the country.
Let's take your example. and
Who's going to pay?
Let's take your
There's
example
no
and
one
push
left.
it to healthcare. In 1983, you were working for GM, you were working for Chrysler, and you counted not only on your pension, but you counted on your health care in those later years.
Absolutely.
And
And your
what
prescription was $2 when you went to go pay your copay.
and so
And now it's $100 or
So-
$50.
right.
It's-
So
it's-
what, I understand there's a pension aspect, but there's also the healthcare aspect to it, and those are treated
But
drastically
at
Now-
least you
different.
have an income.
Now, on the pension, there is no PBGC to cover your health care benefits, where there is for a private company. Like when GM, Chrysler bankruptcies, workers were completely vulnerable on their health insurance. Now, they ended up settling and resolving that with the VEBA trusts, and the unions negotiated hard, and the government backed the unions, and you've got a whole bunch of issues of debate that happened in those bankruptcies. But in the end, the people were still protected right off the bat on their pensions, and they came out pretty good on health care compared to what the workers of the city of Detroit are facing. Take a break. We'll be back and stay on this.
I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't run or exercise. I couldn't work.
Dr. Lewis Radin believes that pain shouldn't have to wait. His Spine Specialist of Michigan is a comprehensive center dedicated to helping you manage pain now. Expect the latest techniques and personalized care. Why suffer another minute?
He's the best. I tell people that he's the one that saved my life.
Make your appointment with Dr. Radin. Call 248-792-9496.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
If your house is underwater, please listen to this important message.
The rules have finally changed. We're seeing some great loan modifications with reduced principal, and short sales are easier to get done than people think. The biggest problems I see are people wait too long or they try and do it themselves. There are no second chances.
If you're underwater in your house, call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Double action.
Shooting Center and Gun Shop. For the largest selection of guns, accessories, and ammunition, Double Action is your only pro gun shop. And now you can train with the best in our basic CCW course with the most comprehensive curriculum, the best resources, and most accomplished staff. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. Double Action is the only place to get your CCW or renewal. Double Action. We're on DeQuinder in Madison Heights.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
Do you have tax problems, unfiled returns, facing levies on wages in your property? You need an expert, not a cartoon character or salesman. Thav Gross is your solution.
You need to look at the big picture. That's what we do. We develop a plan that's right for you.
I had major tax problems. I didn't know what to do.
We did. We sat down together and solved your tax problem.
No more letters, no more phone calls. They saved me.
Call Thav Gross, 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
All right, welcome back. Before we get back to the pensions, let me take a minute to thank our sponsors. Ben Johnson Law, Gold Star Law, Samasco Law, Double Action Shooting Range, Spine Specialist in Michigan. Definitely appreciate the support. Remind people that if you need to examine your own financial issues, you can always call our offices at Thav Gross at 888-235-HELP, or you can go online, thavgross.com or financialcrisistalkcenter.com. You can send us an email explaining your problem. I'll email you back with suggested solutions, and then certainly invite you to come in for a free consultation. All right, back to the pension issue and private versus public sector. As we went to the break, we were talking about health care benefits, too, are a big issue. In the Chrysler and GM bankruptcy, the workers who had the benefit of the union fighting for them, and also the government that was kind of on the side backing the union, the outcome of that bankruptcy was the bondholders took it completely on the chin. And one of the big gripes among the creditors that ended up getting virtually zero on the dollar was that they were treated unfairly because the employees got the benefit of the VEBA, which was for their health insurance, and they took it on the chin.
Because what happened there, the VEBA took an equity interest in Newco on a going forward basis and reaped benefits there, and the bondholders, in particular the Indiana Pension Fund, which was the largest one, argued all the way up to the Supreme Court that you were in essence taking our security interests, which Brian talked about in the prior segment of the show, and treating us as a general unsecured creditor, and that's the gist of what happened there.
Can you explain VEBA a little bit more?
Well, I wanted to brush up on it because it's already a couple years old, but it's a trust where they took the available funds that were there, and then they're making voluntary contributions to fund the trust to cover to supplement health insurance costs. And then the burden of co-pays and the additional costs end up getting borne by the employees. I'm oversimplifying it, but
right.
I'm
It
giving
was
you
a method
general...
It was a method to basically circumvent the bondholders.
There's no question if you go and talk to a affected employee who had health care benefits guaranteed in his mind for life out of GM and Chrysler, they're going to say they got screwed because they're paying this and they're paying that. But all of us have gotten screwed on health care. Why is a whole nother debate. But the point that I come back to is when I'm looking at the Detroit City workers and the pensioners and the firemen and the policemen and all the people that are affected, they're going to take it on the chin relative to health care, certainly, and do we expect them to take it on the chin on their pension? Now, you've got the state constitution that says they have this contractual right that shall not be diminished. And the question is, and then Brian and I have been looking at this.
The shall not be diminished as to the pension has nothing to do with the health care benefits.
Stay off health care. Stay right on that. Is what's the impact of the constitutional provision with respect to the bankruptcy? Now, the city and the EM is saying you should still take a reduction. You don't get the benefit of the state constitution from the standpoint of that diminishment. We talked about, on a recent show, I said, well, maybe then the state should fund the loss. Now, that's nothing.
When did you go to law school? What year, approximately?
I think 79 I started.
Okay. You had constitutional law?
I did.
Okay. This would be a perfect final exam question because you can argue either side rationally and legitimately. Would you agree with that?
I would.
And if you take a step back, I firmly believe that the White House is behind the filing, meaning that they're not adverse to the concept. The governor of the state of Michigan is, and we've got a Republican legislature at the moment. I firmly believe what's going to happen is all these arguments are going to get made, and at the end of the day, it's going to be exactly like GM and Chrysler that also had constitutional arguments and all that in it, even though it's different. But the bankruptcy is going to be ultimately determined to be legitimate, in my opinion, and it will proceed. I don't think there's any doubt that that's going to happen.
I'm with you on that, but go to the next step.
I
don't want to get hung on there. I want both of you guys to cover this issue. What is the outcome? I want to. What's the solution? Here we got two things. We know we have $10 billion of health care benefits and unfunded pension liability. We know the city can't afford that in a reorganization. So we can't. We're sitting here. I think there's a lot of sympathy and empathy for the plight of the worker who thought he had a pension, and I think it's very difficult to say, sorry, Charlie, you don't get your pension. And I've got a comment at the end of the show that I'll share.
First of all, they're not going to get their pension. They're going to not get all of their pension. They're not going to get all of their health benefits. There is money there to pay some of it.
I'm with you. Okay, but who should they get at least all of their pension is my question. And take some hit on there, because should they get at least the same treatment that they would be guaranteed if they were working for a private company and they had the benefit of the PBGC?
I have
should
one
they
word.
or shouldn't
I
they?
have one word.
Yes or no?
Enron.
Yeah,
I want yes or no.
Enron.
What about Enron?
All those people lost all of their life savings in there, and it wasn't backed up by the PBGC
because they didn't have it.
Nobody gave them a handout.
Because
nobody state came out.
They didn't have a pension. They had a 401k.
I understand, but it's the same thing.
No,
There's
it's not the
some
same
level of
thing.
risk.
Pension has a different word. So you're refusing to answer yes or no. Your answer to a yes or no question, if I understood your answer correctly, was Enron.
That's right.
We're going to take a break, and we'll
Let's
think
just
about
say
that. Potato.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances in contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Financially strapped? Do you want to save your home?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
Worth Ave Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Double action. Shooting Center and Gun Shop for the largest selection of guns, accessories, and ammunition. Double Action is your only pro gun shop. And now you can train with the best in our basic CCW course with the most comprehensive curriculum, the best resources, and most accomplished staff. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. Double Action is the only place to get your CCW or renewal. Double Action. We're on DeQuinder and Madison Heights.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
Carrying too much debt? Dump your debt. Call Thav Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call Thav Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Hi, welcome back. When we went to the break, I'd asked Brian a yes or no question. It was a very simple question.
And apparently the answer was potato? Or was it Enron?
Whether they should take the hit on their benefits or not, and you answered the question with Enron. All right, let's not. Your point's well taken. I think your point was, in bad situations, people take a loss. And Enron, it wasn't their pension that they lost because they had like a 401k or whatever their contribution plan was. It was it was invested into their own company and they lost. And there's a distinction. But your point is, in bad situations, people take it on the chin. The question is, how far on the chin do you take it? And that's just one way. What I'm saying is, we got to get rid of this $10 billion worth of debt. So I'm saying that the city can't afford to pay the pension benefits and the health care benefits. That I agree with. The question is,
sell the DIA, pay $3 billion of it down.
Yikes.
All right, well, that's one. That's because I want to talk about it. Solutions. But how much are you going to get for that $3 billion of art? $700 million on a liquidation sale?
Let's say 50 cents on the dollar.
I think that's hopeful, but I mean that's not that would make some headway. You'd lose a lot of value and pride in a great institution.
Would you be okay
and
with the
landmark.
concept that as long as you can get $2 billion, sell it? If not, don't?
I'm okay with the concept of shared sacrifice. I'm okay with that, and I certainly am opposed to the city workers taking a hit. And I think they should be put in the same position they would be in had they worked for a private company. I happen to think that the state should step up. And I know it's controversial, but I think the state should step up and cover the loss. The state constitution guarantees that pension.
Take your wallet out and go ahead and write a check to the state, because that's what you'll end up doing. Your taxes will go up if the state has to come in and bail out the city.
I've got a commentary on it that addresses those issues. So
would you pay $1,000?
I think.
Would you pay $1,000?
That's a yes or no question.
Let me just.
I'm asking
yes.
yes or no question.
Yes.
Would you pay $5,000?
Over an extended period of time, if I had to, yes.
How long?
As long as the $5,000 I was paying was equitably distributed over among all residents of the state, based upon income in a fair manner, if that's what it takes. But what am I trying to accomplish? My goal isn't just to be a benefactor to people that are
$5,000 is coming out of your savings that could have gone into your retirement.
My goal is I want a city. I want a city that I'm proud of. I'm not a resident of the city of Detroit, but where are you from? When you're in California and someone says, "Where are you from, Brian? Where are you from?"
Detroit.
Detroit. And I want to be able to say it in a way where the person I say it to says,
doesn't
wow.
shake their
That's
head.
oh my God, you poor thing. How did you live? How have you made it?
Do you think that the person living in Marquette could care less whether do they think they want their $5,000 going to Detroit?
They should care.
They chose to live in Michigan, and Michigan has to support its major cities.
It's a boundary. They chose to live in Marquette. They are more concerned about their city.
So you've got one issue is, should the taxpayers of the state of Michigan bear some of the cost? Now let's talk about the land. If we have to decrease the size of these borders and turn it into farmland, let the federal government buy back the land. And let the federal government then use its farm subsidies, which have, I don't know what they are, but I know this much. There's billions of dollars of farm subsidies.
Yeah, there's no farm subsidies coming to Michigan to
Why
bail
not?
us out, because you have a Republican House that has specifically said
I don't wanna,
they're not coming in and bailing out.
I'm
Detroit.
talking about I want about what's just. I don't want to talk
the
about
farm.
our Congress.
If you turned it all into blacktop and you had communities that were living together that you could provide
rollerblade on it?
services, you could have the garbage picked up, you could have police, you could have fire. Forget about
You
the other.
can't- it's too
Forget
much-
about the
it's too much
opportunity
territory.
cost of the land. So how do you get it together?
Eminent domain.
The eminent domain.
That's the only way,
And
because
and the
Detroiters
government
didn't want
buys
to
it
give
back,
up
and they-
Belle Isle,
and they
let
convert- and they converted it into
It was like
farmland.
Pole Town. How did Pole Town work out?
Here, let me share with you a commentary I have on it. If we have time at the end
You
of the
have
show,
comments?
Yeah, I do. It addresses some of these issues. Okay. All right. Sometimes you need to step back a moment and evaluate a situation, and seek an outcome that is morally correct and just. And then, if need be, you need to find the legal theory or pass the necessary law in order to attain the right outcome. If you are 60 and you began working for the city 30 years ago in 1983, you knew a couple of things. Your pay would be okay, not great. Your hours relatively reasonable. And if you stuck it out for the long haul, you'd have a pension to retire with. There would be no 401k or encouragement that way because you had a pension. People did not come to you in 1985 when you were 32 and say, "Hey, Mac, you better not be counting on that pension in 2013. It's not insured, municipal governments will be falling apart, and there's a strong chance that the money you were promised won't be there." I'm a taxpayer and a non-resident of Detroit. I do not pay City of Detroit income tax. I hate paying state taxes and federal taxes like everyone else. Sometimes I vote Republican, other times Democratic. I think of myself more as a conservative Democrat or a liberal-minded Republican, if that even exists. But no matter how I cut the deck, I know that it is wrong and unacceptable outcome for us to tell people who have worked for the city their entire working years and have earned their pensions, "Sorry, Mac, there's nothing we can do." Coming together and making Detroit a viable growth platform for the future requires shared sacrifice and commitment. It is certain that the pensioners will take a major hit on their health benefits. To extend their loss any further is unconscionable. I may not be a resident of the city, but when I'm out of town and someone asks, "Where are you from?" for better or worse, I always say Detroit. We don't need to blame the banks, our corrupt officials, or anyone else to justify correcting this problem. It doesn't matter what the cause. There is only one right and moral outcome, and that is to make sure that for those who have earned their pensions, we find a way to make good on them. If it means a higher sales tax or a bump in my income tax, so be it. In 2 years, when someone mentions Detroit, the tagline can be "sad story," or it can be "wow, they really came together." Greed and bickering will guarantee sadness. Leadership, determination, and sacrifice will bring us together. That's what we got to do. Have a great week. We will be back next week on the Financial Crisis Talk Center. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our sponsors.